I'm live. I'm live. Fluid Social, say something. I've not done this before. This is the first time, so bear with me, everyone. And ask questions. If you have any questions on the fly to anyone that's watching, feel free to chuck them here. Right. So, question 1. And this question is from Pink Panther. So, Pink Panther, how to keep one's quiffalicious. Now, what I assume you're talking about there, Pink Panther, is how to keep one's hair in check. And as you can see, I've taken a Phillips 1 blade to my head and shaved it all off. And now I've got this sort of rude strip above the ears. I thought it was sort of easier and preferable to keeping one's quiffalicious to actually just shave it all off. Why not? There's no better time, right? We're all stuck inside, and so why not shave the hair off? So that's what I do. I basically just take the blade to the head, and then once I've shaved off the area that I wish to shave off, I just add some bio oil to the beard and to the hair to keep it glossy and hydrated. Question 2, and this one's from Arian Jamali. Interesting name. I hope that's a handle. Texting. So what I imagine this question really refers to is if you've got leads, if you've got some women that you were talking to beforehand or some girls that you're interested in dating, and now we find ourselves all locked down, you want to sort of sustain that relationship and maintain something throughout this period of strange quarantine. And so with texting, what I would recommend is firstly, instead of thinking, how do I message this individual or these individuals, to instead think, what do I want to message them about? Because I know it seems like a long time that we're spending here, but really, if ever you're thinking, I want to contact this person, you should instead switch your focus to, what do I have to say to that person, right? So if you just want to speak to them, the kind of things you're going to come up with to say are not going to be very interesting or engaging, and it might come off as sort of boring and needy. Because if you don't have anything interesting to say to them, or you don't have any content to share with them, then it's, in most cases, just better not to message them at all, right? To wait, or to think, what can I say uniquely to them? What can I say that is specific and relevant to my relationship with that person? And then message them something based on that. So, for example, if you've been on one date with that person in the past, what storylines do you have from that date? What was the content of the date? What can you bring up that's a specific personal narrative between you and that person that you can re-engage on? And how does that relate to your position today and your respective situations? It's always going to take a level of creativity from you to say anything that's going to be of value to the other person. There is no line that you can just say to keep things alive. It has to be based around what it is that you actually want to say to that individual. So with texting, if ever you pick up your phone just wanting to message someone, I would advise putting your phone back down, either moving on to something else or thinking about, what can I say of value to them, and focus on the narrative and the storyline and not just the person and being in contact with them. Now, having said that, there is a chance that there are other people texting that person, and with everyone in lockdown and in isolation, maybe there's a chance that you're losing that person to someone else, where someone else is taking the action that you're not taking, and therefore winning that situation, which you're now losing. And in that case, I would say you need to sort of adopt the que sera attitude, which is that if that person is going to go away and find someone else or be persuaded by another individual, it's your job to let that happen in a way. No one's going away forever. And if, she's engaging with another guy during this time, then let that happen. Be okay with that. Move on from that and understand that when you do have something interesting to say, you can still say that. And if that thing is also interesting to her and she likes it, then you can make something happen off the back of it. And if you don't, then no one loses. Relax, wait your turn, wait until you have something interesting to say, and then say it to them. But it really comes down to that idea of knowing that you're going to be okay. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter. You don't need this one girl. And the interesting thing that happens when you fully embrace that, when you lose all sense of risk and lose all sense of disappointment if something doesn't happen, is that you start to communicate and think more freely about that individual. And your communication actually becomes more attractive and more engaging because you don't need it anymore. And she sort of senses that, right? I always find it interesting when I've had girlfriends in the past or women I've dated, and you know, most of those relationships have been open to some extent. There haven't been rules applied as to whether we are solely with each other, whether we're exclusive, but in certain cases we sort of have been, because we haven't felt the need to be put a label on it or put a set of rules around it. And what I find now is a lot of them actually come to me for advice, because we'd talk about things, we'd talk about their histories with other guys and what they like to do and what they like to do in the bedroom and things like that. And so now when those relationships are finished, or when they're with someone else, they feel comfortable coming to me and talking to me about it. And that keeps those relationships sort of open in a really nice way. So I would recommend adopting that attitude, particularly at the start of relationships when you're interested in a girl, to avoid that egoic sense of wanting to possess them and wanting to apply your rules to your relationship with them, and just work on connecting with them. Just enjoy the time you spend with them, enjoy the conversations you're having, allow them to be free until a point comes that both of you feel that you would rather be only with each other, and let that question come up when it comes up. Don't try and force that outcome. Just relax, because in most cases she's going to be relaxed. And even if she starts to feel like she really wants to be in a relationship with you, it doesn't force your hand in any way. And oftentimes our prospective partners, the people that we're interested in, give us a lot of leeway to sort of wait on a relationship and allow ourselves to just enjoy the interaction without forcing that label on it. So in terms of texting, the way that applies is just don't message them unless you have something to say. If something's turned up that's reminded you of them, if they came into one of your dreams, if you've just been thinking about them a lot, that's the type of thing you can say. Like, you keep coming into my dreams. It's weird. I never invited you there, right? Something fun and interesting in the moment that you can message to someone without a need for a response, without the need for a conversation to come out of it, but feeling like you can just message them on the fly with something that you want to say, but not trying to message them, right? Focusing again on the content, on the connection that you have with that individual. And that sort of sets the frame that they're then going to feel comfortable just sending you a message when they're thinking of you, or contributing to that shared personal narrative that the both of you have. So I think this question requires a sort of shift of mindset, not to what shall I say as a rule to any girl that I'm interested in, but what specifically do I want to say to one individual. So that's what I would how I would answer your question, Ari and Jamali. I hope that goes some way towards giving you some comfort in this department. The next question from Gianluigi. Gianluigi, I take it you're from Italy. How to turn the conversation man to woman. Right, so again, this is one of those questions that very much depends on the specific context, right? There is no one way to switch a conversation from being something maybe superficial, surface level, platonic, to being something that's actually more polarized and there's more attraction in that conversation. So what I would say is that if you're focused during a conversation on turning it man to woman, you're having a conversation with yourself. You are literally having a dialogue with yourself. One part of you is saying, how do I make this sexier? How do I make this conversation more stimulating? How do I show that I'm a masculine man and make it feel like we're connecting romantically? And you're not asking these questions to her. You're not engaging with her. You're not even seeing her. You're looking directly inside your own head, and therefore you're missing the cues in the conversation that are likely to provide you with the answers to the question, right? So whenever you're thinking about any of these questions during an interaction, the best thing to do is take a step back. I don't mean literally, but sort of metaphorically, take a step back and just remind yourself that you're in a conversation, focus on her eyes, focus on her face, because the way that we build attraction in a conversation is by expressing attraction ourselves, is by expressing the way that we feel about that girl in the moment, not necessarily through words, but allowing our bodies, our faces, our entire manifested presence to express the way we're feeling. And we can't do that when we're simultaneously thinking. That can only happen when we're totally focused on the other individual. And when we are focused on the other individual, we give ourselves that sort of mental space to just think, wow, I'm actually attracted to this woman. Not just I recognize that she is attractive, not just that she looks good, she's pretty, she's beautiful, but actually that I feel a personal sense of attraction. I feel the process of being attracted. And that's really the important missing factor here. I hear it a lot from my clients when I'm coaching guys in the daytime. They say like, yeah, she was really beautiful, but I feel like she wasn't attracted to me. And this is such a big problem because it puts you in this reactive mindset where it's like you're waiting for a signal from her to express attraction towards you before you're willing to take things to the next step and to express attraction to her. But actually, very often, she's only going to feel attracted to you when you're expressing attraction for her. Now, I'm not sure that that's entirely as clear as I'd like it to be, but essentially, you have to put yourself at the cause point. You have to say, right, until I am engaged with the process of attraction, until I feel internally stimulated by her, attracted to her, it's very difficult for her to feel attracted to me. Because we're not just looking at the visage, we're not just looking at the surface of another person. The micro communications on their face, the twitches in their cheeks and in their brow are the things that tell us how they're feeling about us. And we've evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to become master computers in sort of analyzing these minute facial expressions and translating them into a feeling tone, which we then understand as attraction or as joy or nervousness or fear or whatever else. We can tell that on someone's face, but we have to be actually looking and seeing them in order to understand how they're feeling and in order to be able to express honestly the way we're feeling, not just with words, but in our entire expression. So that's the answer to that question, Gianluigi. Next up, we've got first person approacher. How to meet women if you have no experience. So for guys who have very little experience with going out and meeting women in the daytime or in other environments, what should you be doing? Aside from just saying that approaching women in the daytime, in the streets, is, in my opinion, an incredibly valuable practice. I will say that first. But then I would caveat that by saying I think it's overrated as a discipline and as a means to an end. So for example, I think that the success rate, if we're defining success as getting a number or arranging a date, the success rate from approaching women cold in the streets is extremely low. But there are so many opportunities that, let's say, for every 50 approaches you do, you go on 3 dates, right? That's not an unusual statistic for guys. But that's your training ground. That's like a boxer using his punch bag and training outside of the ring, preparing himself so that he's ready when the real thing happens. Yes, you can meet your next girlfriend in the street, but it requires a lot of patience. It requires a lot of rejection in that, she's just not interested, or she doesn't have the time, or she feels a little intimidated by the idea of speaking to a stranger in the day. So it's a great training ground, but that's how I would think about it. I would be, I would expect that you're going to get some results as well, and you're going to meet some amazing people and have some great experiences. But I would see it more as something that even if you were guaranteed not to have those experiences, not to get those dates, it would still be a worthwhile investment of your time. because it trains your discipline, it trains your overcoming of fears, it trains the social muscles in your brain that keeps you active and versatile when in social situations, at work, throughout your day, with family members, or anything else. It's just such great mental training that I would advise on that basis alone. And then there's the fact that there's going to be opportunities throughout your day all the time. And so even if the hit rate is low, there's going to be so many opportunities that some of them are going to pull through. And so for people that are just starting out or don't have a lot of experience meeting women, I would recommend focusing on the following two factors. The first one is think about what it is that you enjoy. So if you're someone that enjoys art and culture, architecture, London particularly, but most big cities in the UK, I know, cater to that. They've got exhibitions, they've got museums, they've got art galleries, they've got spaces that you can go that you're for things that you're interested in, right? So that's number one. What are you interested in? Secondly, you want to find spaces that are a balance of private and public. So private, I would define as something like a small yoga class, a dinner party for just a few people, you know, events that have a very, very high entrance barrier, right? Something very private and local and small. Public spaces might be more like a public library, an art gallery, a food festival, you know, an open food festival, something like that. What you want to do is find the middle ground, find the point where private meets public. So if an art gallery is a public space and a private yoga class is a private space, the middle ground would be like an exhibition, right? So if you go to the art gallery to see an exhibition on 90s rave culture, let's say, then that is a little bit more private because not everyone's interested in that niche, but it's public enough that people don't feel a sense of pressure to engage with other individuals. It's still a public space, but has that element of an entrance barrier and of a niche interest. And those spaces are really, really good places to meet the people that you're interested in, because they provide security for the girl. They give her the sense that this isn't just a complete, total stranger that's meeting her. It's someone that has shared interests with her. It's someone that must have similarities and certain things in common with her to be in that exact space. And it provides a level of comfort whilst not feeling claustrophobic, right? Like perhaps that private yoga class, it would be, or on a bus, for example, it would feel awkward maybe because other people are around, they might hear you, you feel like that's your space where you can let loose, and now someone's, you know, smothering you in a conversation. Find those spaces that are a balance between public and private, and they will provide you with great opportunities to meet women with common interests. That gives you a lot to talk about. Then you don't have to worry so much about what shall I say as an opening line. If you're at an exhibition or some semi-private party, you can just talk about what you're seeing. You can talk about the context, the environment. The fact that you've got that shared interest is content for conversation that you otherwise wouldn't have in a very public space like the streets. So find your niche interests, focus on spaces that are a balance of public and private, and also make sure that those spaces are likely to have at least some opportunities. And unlike the streets, those opportunities are going to give you a much higher hit rate, even though they may be fewer. The filters will mean that the women you meet there are much more likely to engage with you, and the conversations are more likely to produce something exciting because you guys actually have that shared interest and that conversation stimulus from the space itself. So that's the first question from First Person Approacher. By the way, the music you're listening to, very gentle music in the background, is Kiasmos, Olafur Arnalds, and Jan Rasmussen, two Scandinavians, and it's really good, sort of chilled study music. Second question from First Person Approacher: why do some people think it's harassment to approach women in the day? Well, okay, so if you are trying to figure out the answer to a question like that, why do some people think it's harassment? first you want to think, if you ever want to make a point in an argument, if you're ever having an argument, or you're preparing a debate, or you're preparing to sort of fight someone in the intellectual field, the best place to start is by arguing from their point of view, right? So if you believe that cold approaching women in the day is good for society, and you want to argue that point, the first thing you want to do is try and argue your opponent's point, right? Why is it not okay to approach people in the day? What is wrong with it? What's everything you can think of that justifies why it is harassment, right? So let's think from a woman's perspective, a woman that's maybe had bad experiences with men. She's been, I don't want to say victim, but she's had negative experiences in her life. She's maybe been subjected to domestic abuse, or she's been touched inappropriately in public spaces, and therefore she has a general mistrust of men, in the way that we sometimes do mistrust people when we've had specific instances from people who look like them or seem like them. If a woman's walking through the street and all day long she maybe has some level of anxiety, or she's timid and shy, and all day long she's getting stared at, leered at by men, and she's feeling like no one really sort of sees her, they just see her as a piece of meat, for lack of a better term. And then the guys that do come up to her and approach her say something vile, or say something that, even if they intended it to be nice, comes off to her, she translates it as something negative and sexist and sexually demeaning. Then she might then have sort of prejudice against the very act of approaching, right? She might think that because she's had so many negative experiences in the past, that the probability is that the next experience she has is also going to be demeaning and derogatory and nasty. And so when a normal guy comes up and says hi, she's already on this platform of rejecting that approach, and of thinking that that person is being sexist and demeaning, because she's had that prejudice ingrained in her, right? I know a lot of guys that will follow my channel have had the opposite experience. You feel like women have treated you badly, and you've had ex-girlfriends cheat on you, you know, lots of negative experiences with women, and it can plant this sort of seed of mistrust, and this seed that all women are the same and they're all shallow, and we've got to be really careful not to identify ourselves with any of this confirmation bias or this dogma, not to let our prejudices, however subtle they may be, flavor the way we see the world and the way we expect the next experience to happen, right? So coming back to the question, why do some people think it's harassment? Well, because firstly, sometimes it is harassment, right? If someone does touch a woman in a way that makes her feel like she's been assaulted, then even if he didn't intend that, if he's touched her when she hadn't given him any sign that she wanted to be touched, or that she was open to that, then it kind of is harassment, right? I know that all of you guys aren't doing that. I know that you're not coming at this from a negative place, or you wouldn't still be watching my channel and my videos. But we've got to be able to empathize first with the women that are against this process before we can actually, you know, come at this from the most neutral and rational perspective, right? If a woman responds badly to you, if you approach her and she responds badly to you in the day, she tells you to go away, or she calls you a sexist pig or whatever, our initial reaction is to think of her as a feminist, you know, just another radical feminist, you know, and find a problem with it. But actually the appropriate response is sympathy. The best response you can come to there is sympathy, is to say, right, well, if she's responded that way to a compliment, if me coming up and telling her she looks beautiful and that I wanted to meet her, or she looks interesting, if her response to that is to say something nasty or act like you've offended her, then she's either having a really, really bad day, or she's been subjected to some incredibly bad experiences. And whether or not she was right or wrong, it's not our job to cast a moral judgment on the way that she responded. It's our job to act in the way that is most beneficial for us and for her, right? So if you then respond with sympathy, be like, I'm really sorry. I didn't intend to make you feel anything other than beautiful or anything other than good when I came to approach you. she might just soften up for the next guy that comes up to her, right? She might just open her mind a bit. And maybe the next guy that approaches her, she doesn't spit venom at them, but she's kind to them, and she starts to soften up. And it's just the same with us. If as guys, we've been treated badly by women, or we've had negative experiences in the past that have sort of tinged the way we see them in certain ways, and then one woman is just entirely kind, honest, open, and good, it will start to influence you another way, right? It will start to make you see that the prejudices that perhaps you've held don't uphold scrutiny, and that you've actually been influenced in ways that were outside of your conscious understanding. So it's a very nuanced question. It's a difficult one to talk about in clear words, but why do some people think it's harassment to approach women in the day? Well, firstly, because sometimes it is, and secondly, because the lines are so blurred. Even the body of, I did some research on it a while ago, but even the leading organizations to tackle street harassment, which they're calling it now, they don't even have clear terms for it, right? They have different terms. They even say in their description, we don't have a unified term. So it ranges from rape to leering, and leering could just be you seeing a girl you like the look of and trying to smile at her, and her misinterpreting that. And so it's just so incredibly nuanced that I would advise everyone not to spend too much time trying to fight against the perception of street harassment in a sort of militant way, and getting angry that it's difficult, and getting angry that some women think it's bad, full stop. And instead, do whatever you can to show them in clear language and with clarity that you are just intending to express yourself clearly, and to make them, bring positivity to them, and to be honest with the way that you're feeling and how you want to act in the moment. And if everybody does that and focuses on what's right about it, what's right about the act of approaching a woman you like the look of, rather than what's wrong with all of the discussion about harassment, then you will improve things, rather than adding to this war of sides, this, men against women, this radical feminist against men go their own way. There doesn't need to be a battleground here. And a sort of peaceful resistance, just saying, look, this is what it is. People feel this way. I'm sorry for what's ever happened to them in the past. I'm going to keep complimenting the women I like the look of. I'm going to keep speaking my truth when I see the opportunities, and grab the opportunities when I see them in the day. And people, at least some people, are going to be influenced positively by this. And that's your focus. That's the small patch of the world that you can change. Don't worry about changing the whole narrative. Just change your small corner of the world. Next question by first person approacher. Older men meeting younger women. That's not the exact words, I'm paraphrasing. But he says a lot of, I'm a guy in my mid-30s and I'm attracted to women who are much younger than me. I know there's no legal problem with that, as long as the woman is of age, over 18, but other people's perceptions of it can be that there's something seedy or creepy about that. So the first thing I would say is, if you are a guy and you like women, that public perception seems to suggest that it's wrong for you to be attracted to them or to pursue them. Again, I would first accept that that is the perception, rather than getting angry and trying to rally against that perception. And then I would ask yourself, why? What exactly is it that you're attracted to about them, right? Because as guys, we are extremely visual, and we can be turned on by what we see instantly, the image that appears in front of us, for example. But in this case, particularly if you're a guy that's looking for a partner, you should be thinking, what stage am I in my life, and what am I really looking for? Am I looking for someone to be a stimulating partner who has the same interests with the same interests as me, that I can actually go and live life with and do interesting things with? Or am I just looking for instant gratification, just the visual field? I would advise, if you're looking for a partner, that you try and look beyond just the visual, and actually, in my experience with clients, it's better to broaden what you're looking for. I understand that, you know, women in their early 20s are often, there's something very attractive about that. But if you are a guy in your 30s, 40s, I would at least be open-minded to dating women that are a bit older than that, because it sometimes takes an action in a certain direction to show you that you actually are attracted to them as well, right? It's like a lot of the time we think we're attracted to a type of girl, like a girl from a certain country or a certain place or with a certain look, but that attraction is really just based off a good experience that we've had previously, and we didn't have that feeling before we had the experience initially. And so you've got to understand that that's the same in the future, right? You need that new experience to show you what you can be interested in, the way that your mind is malleable to appreciating the many different qualities of different women. So that's the first thing, is just to consider, right, is this just my own dogma telling me that young women are the best, I like much younger women, or is this actually something that's true on a deeper level, and am I actually searching in vain for something that maybe isn't so important? The second thing I would say is that, look, it's not our job to guess at what a woman wants. So if you're a guy in your mid-30s and you see a girl who could be 18, 19, 20, 21, and the first thought that comes to you, well, let's say you're mid-40s, and the first thought that comes is, no, I'm way too old, she's not going to be interested, it's creepy for me to go and say hi. Well, that sort of takes the autonomy away from her to decide what she's looking for. Sure, she might find you too old, she might do. She also might not. She might be interested in a guy that's got some more experience and has some different life experiences to her, with a little more wisdom. And it's not your job to guess at what she is or isn't interested in. You should leave that to her to decide. And the only way to do that is to go up and talk to her. So if you are an older guy, you know, and you're interested in younger women, and you're honestly interested in older women, and that interest survives under scrutiny, then it's not your job to guess at what she does and doesn't want. Go and talk to her. And if she's not interested in you because of your age, she'll make that clear. And if she doesn't make that clear, then you guys have to figure that out together, right? One of you has to take that decision. But essentially, the moral of the story is, don't worry about what other people think. If it's legal, if you're not taking the decision away from the girl, if you're not taking away her autonomy to say yes or no, then it's not your job to guess whether she will or won't like you. It's your job to take the action that's true to you and let the interaction unfold as it will. And only then will you find out whether she's interested in you or not. Next question. George K. Home workouts. What am I doing for home workouts? Well, actually, I thought I'd take this time not to work out at all. So I've lost a lot of muscle. I've lost a lot of weight. Because I don't really like half measures. I don't like the idea of just doing some press-ups, because I like going all the way in the pool rather than just dipping my toes. And if I don't have a squat rack, if I don't have deadlift available, if I don't have the gym equipment, which I don't, then I find it a little bit tedious to try and tie up loose ends by doing some press-ups and some sit-ups. So actually what I've been doing is, when I get up about 7:30, then I do yoga. I put on some nice music, like Kiasmos or something like that. And I do 10, 15 minutes of yoga. I basically just do yoga stretches until my body just feels flexible. And you will feel it in your body when you do the stretches. There are some videos online, sort of 10 minutes. Men's yoga is what I typed in, just because it's a little bit less, I find that it's less to do with chakras and more about just follow these stretches and breathing. And so I do the yoga, then I do 20 minutes meditation with Sam Harris's Waking Up app. And the yoga is actually a really, really good exercise. It involves some isometric holds, so some core exercises. You end up basically doing some holding in a squat position for a while. So you do some exercise there. And then I go for sort of 3 or 4 mile run up along the Bath skyline. I'm in the city of Bath at the moment. And that sort of gets the heart rate up, sweats out the toxins, and gets a breath of fresh air. And also in isolation, I think one of the big deficits, one of the big problems that everyone's going to be facing is that we're going to be unimmunized to the bacteria that we're meant to face, right? When you go about your day and you shake hands with people and you open and close doors and do all of the things that we used to be doing, you build a natural resistance to bacteria and to disease. And now that we're all locked inside, we've sort of lost that resistance. We're losing it, and we haven't got the same vitamin D exposure. So just getting out and actually being in the world and actually exposing yourself to that, I think, is keeping your immune system strong. So if you don't have access to gym equipment, if you don't have really good access to exercise, I recommend yoga in the morning, first thing when you get up. Make a cup of tea, do some yoga, 20 minutes meditation. I use Sam Harris's Waking Up app. It's about £9 a month, but you can send him an email and get it for free if that's outside of your budget. Then I do some reading, cook a healthy breakfast, omelette, and then in the afternoon I do a 3 or 4 mile run along the Bath skyline, and that's great exercise. What I'm going to do after this lockdown lifts, which I think will be sooner than we think, is I'm going to do a video series of body transformation. I'm going to get back to the gym and do 2 months, pile on the weight and the muscle again. And that's a good way for you guys to incentivize yourself as well, to say, right, as soon as this is over, if I'm not working out in the same way now, it will give me that incentive to do a sort of self-transformation. And maybe you can record that. Maybe you can even team up with a personal trainer and use it for his channel or his company, and he'll teach you for free. There's many creative ways we can think about using this time to actually change our physical shape and then change it back when our opportunities and our access to gym equipment increases. So that's what I'd say about home workouts: yoga, meditation, go for a run. Don't worry about muscle mass. You're not impressing anyone when you're in lockdown. Just focus on your physical health, your resistance to disease, vitamin D intake, and getting the blood pumping, the heart rate up, and sweating out the toxins. Try and drink lots of water. If you don't like drinking water plain, drink cups of tea because it's hydrating, and there's also good antibodies in tea. So now we've got Holge, Holge. Okay, inside tips about Rio. Good question. So I'd literally just got back to London. I was a couple of weeks deep into London when these lockdown measures hit. And so I've left my small child in Rio de Janeiro. And Rio is a pretty controversial place at the moment. The president is very relaxed on these lockdown measures. He's basically encouraging everyone to go out and protest and demonstrate and live life. And he's not paying any attention to the measures. Lots of people are angry about that, but time will tell how this should have been handled. It's hard to know now. And so I think Brazil's a tough place at the moment because nobody really knows what they're up to. But inside tips for Rio: if you are planning to go to Rio, I would recommend staying in Leblon or Ipanema. I like to stay in Botafogo, but if it were my first time going to Rio, I wouldn't want to stay in Botafogo. Botafogo is more like the sort of Shoreditch area of London. It's the Shoreditch equivalent. It's a bit more hipster. There's some sort of dive bars, classic rock bars and things like that. Colourful graffiti, much more liberal and left wing. Really fun. Lots of outdoor parks and old mansions with open gardens and interesting spaces. It's a great place for entrepreneurs. But if you're just visiting, or if you're going for a couple of weeks to focus on meeting women or building your social skills, I would recommend Leblon. And then after that, Ipanema. Leblon is about 1.4 times the price of Ipanema. Ipanema is about 1.2 times the price of Botafogo, right? So, and then Copacabana, I wouldn't go to really because it's mostly lost-looking foreigners, prostitutes, and an aging community. It's sort of the forgotten land of Rio, even though it used to be the most popular place, and it's probably got the most fame of all the places. If you're going to Rio, the things that you're going to learn from the women there is that honesty of expression pays for everything. You can go up and say to a girl, "Hi, I just saw you walking past. I thought you looked really attractive. And she'll be like, yeah, as in, I know. So what are you going to say? Because it's so normal out there. It's so commonplace for women to be approached that just going up and approaching doesn't win you any points. It's what you say next, or it's how you behave next. And what you learn over there is that what you're saying really doesn't matter. It's the way that you're communicating. It's your body language. It's the way that you're expressing that women are drawn to. And so you'll learn that very quickly. That's the important thing to focus on in Rio, is just looking the girl in the eye, staying present in the moment, and moving things along more quickly. If you go out at night, you're more likely to kiss a girl in Rio than you are in most other places. And that's just because they're physical by nature. They're a lot more hands-on. They're a lot more sensual and physical. So many insider tips. I'd recommend emailing me privately, admin@fluid.social, if you want specific tips on Rio. But I would focus on Leblon because it's got the highest proportion of sort of young, attractive women. I would focus on approaching as naturally as you can in the daytime, and the opportunities are great at night. And then at night, don't focus on nightclubs, focus on the little bars along the streets. There's lots of little bars called Botecos. Go there with a few friends, invite different friends groups or different people that you know, and throw everyone together, and it will be a lot of fun. Final question. Ozgur Aydin. He talks about infield. It's impossible to do infield right now. Like I'm not going to go out and do infields in the UK now. Tusk and I are looking to go to Sweden in the coming weeks. At the moment, they seem to have a little bit more of a relaxed policy. Again, I'm not recommending anybody break their lockdown rules or do anything, but for me, as soon as I have an opportunity to get out of here and live my life, I'm going to take it. So that's down to us to decide. But I'm looking to go to Sweden over the next few weeks, and maybe there we'll be able to do some filming. A few guys have asked me about cold approaching during coronavirus now. My personal opinion is that it's, at the moment at least, it's just not a very fruitful pursuit. I wouldn't advise getting close to women. I do think that the statistics that we're seeing are massively overblown, and the mortality rate is closer to between 0.4 and 0.6%, and not the 5% that they were talking about last month. There's going to be many 10 to 100-fold times the amount of cases that have been reported. And so I think things are going to lift sooner than we think, and I think the risks are fewer than we think, but it's still, we don't know that. I'm no source of valuable information on this topic. And I do think that, if you go up and try and talk to a girl who's living with her aging parents or her grandparents or family members who are vulnerable, you are inflicting upon her a potential death sentence to her family members, and you don't know. So you have to be a lot more careful. And I wouldn't recommend approaching in public spaces, because as much as you can, it's good to just abide by the laws and the rules of what we've been given. But I also understand that there's a lot of people that this isn't just, oh, stay at home for a bit. This is actually turning your life upside down and causing a lot of pain and anguish. And so I also think that if you can find intelligent and creative ways to find loopholes and whilst protecting and maintaining the security of the vulnerable people around you, you can find a way to continue living your life in as best way you can, then I think you should use your own discretion and make sure that you are abiding by your own moral compass and what you believe is actually the right thing to do. And if that means moving to another country where they seem to be handling it better than we are in the UK, then go there. If you can, go there and enjoy it. Any other questions I haven't received? I don't know if you guys have commented. I'm sorry if you have. Where would that be? Whatever. I'm going to do this again. I think I'm going to do one on Wednesday as well. So if you guys have any questions, just send the questions to me on the community page. I've done a few posts, so I'm always checking them and reading the questions that you guys are asking. So I'm going to do another one of these at Wednesday at 6 p.m. I think. I will give you updates on that. Please ask me your questions. I will answer all of them. Yeah, I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you're all safe. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Much more of this in the future. Take care. Sam out.